Before I was writing a monthly synagogue bulletin, I began my writing career as a columnist at the Columbia University Daily Spectator. I joined up in my freshman year because, I'm going to be the first to admit it, the newspapers ran the best parties. However, I should have figured out sooner or later that most people who wrote for the student paper at Columbia University, which is the school that awards the Pulitzer Prize for journalism, were not joining for the parties. They were aspiring journalists. And so when I was there, I had my brushes with fame. My first editor and secret Santa, although we would have said Hanukkah Harry, was Nick Schifrin. Today you can watch Nick every night on the PBS Evening News. Adam Kushner, who helped me hone my writing, is now a senior editor at the Washington Post, and one of my fellow op-ed columnists, who I also knew from Hillel, is Barry Weiss, the anti-Semitism writing guru and former New York Times columnist. Like I said, I was there for the parties. Only later did I discover that everyone else seemed to be there for the journalism. And so one of my more notable memories happened when I made a very risky decision. I decided to write a column related to sports. I heard from Phil Wallace. Phil Wallace, who was the editor of the sports section, did not go on, like me, to become a journalist. Phil now recruits and professionally brands Division I college athletes. However, before you say to me, Rabbi Dorsch, you must have been out of your element, and before I tell you about the nature of the disagreement we had, there are two things you must know about Columbia University sports. The first is that it is free to attend any Columbia University sports event, because no one ever went. Compare that with the University of Georgia football ticket on StubHub. It was $150. The second thing that y'all got to know is that Columbia University holds the award for the longest football losing streak. True story. In the 1990s, Columbia lost 50 straight football games before they finally won a game. And so when I sat down to pen my op-ed column about the sorry state of our athletic program, I made an argument for what was essentially the power of school spirit that I hoped would create a better sports culture at school. Yes, I said, our teams were terrible, but the school was giving out free tickets and people still weren't coming. How, I argued, could we expect our athletes to perform well? How could we expect our athletes to win games when it was clear that they did not have the support of the student body? How could we expect them to win even a single basketball game with no ruach? Literally dozens of people sitting in the stands, only dozens at any given basketball game. So Phil took me aside, took me to task, and told me it was the opposite. You can't blame the fans, he said. If you think we have no school spirit, blame the program. Blame the recruiters, blame the players. They are not taking the game seriously. If the fans are going to show up, they need something to inspire them to show up. No one wants to go and see a losing team, even if it's free. I've been thinking about this disagreement with Phil because this past month I attended two very different sporting events here in Atlanta, a football and a soccer game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which has led me to understand and to argue this morning that when it comes to who is important for creating a vibrant culture, whether it's sports or anything else, that each of us, in our own ways, both Phil and both I or me, are correct. Marissa, I promised you I was not going to be political, But friends, let's acknowledge the problem we have in this city. Falcons fans are terrible. Atlanta United fans are unbelievable. Which begs the question, why, if they're both playing in the same amazing stadium, the same concessions, why the difference between them? Well, my friend Phil would tell you that it's because the Falcons have never won a Super Bowl, and they've been disappointing us for a lot longer. Y'all remember the joke from the Super Bowl a few years ago, why the section of I-85 was renamed Falcons Bridge? They were both on fire for an hour and then collapsed. Compare that now to Atlanta United. They won in their inaugural season in 2017. But in my eyes, and I'm going to argue this morning, it's more than just about the team's performance. Because I attended the Falcons game on opening day, and I can tell you there is something missing. Everyone there seemed to be distracted or doing something else. I've never heard so many loudspeakers started chants for the team begin and end so quickly at a game. Defense. Gone within seconds, never to be seen again. Contrast that now with Atlanta United. There were cheers everywhere. Everyone next to me was an expert in the game and the players. They knew everybody. They wanted to talk about it. Some of you may know that Atlanta United fans are given a name. They're called 17ers. Does anyone know why? It's because the team has saved the jersey number 17 for the fans. There will never be a player number 17 on Atlanta United because we are number 17. There is a recognition of the role that the ruach of the fans helps the team to win and to succeed. And that's where I'm right. You may say, or we're both right, that players and fans have a responsibility to inspire and to uplift one another. In this week's Parsha, one must wonder about the indomitable spirit of our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah. Why is it that this one story is worthy? Avraham and Sarah and the Malachim, the angels, is worthy of being in our Torah. It is without a doubt because Abraham and Sarah show up to play for the game. There it is the effort that they put into it. Abraham sees 3 angels running toward the tent, and he runs out to greet them. Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, point out, it is simply remarkable how often the word vayarot, meaning to run with haste, is used in the story. The guy just had a circumcision, and he's running out the door. Sarah runs at top speed to make the food. Why is this story in the Torah? It's because the two of them bring their A game. Come into our tent, he says. We will wash your feet. We'll give you food and rest. Avraham offers his guests a winning combination. And I would posit that this story would not be in the Torah had Abraham and Sarah brought their B game. What if, for example, Avraham and Sarah had given them 3-day-old leftovers and sent them on their way? I am not sure we would be looking at Abraham and Sarah the same way, as paradigmatic of what we Jews are supposed to do when we welcome guests into our homes. And conversely, I think we can also imagine for a moment that this story would not have been as powerful had the angels also not shown up to play. Would this story have been in the Torah had the angels not brought their incredible news about Sarah being pregnant? What if they had just been guests, shown up, not been grateful, eaten and taken their leave? There must have been thousands and thousands of times that Avraham and Sarai welcomed guests into their tent. But none of those stories made it into our Torah. You see that? Abraham and Sarah might have gotten up and rushed for those people, but if those people did not rush back towards them, if they did not bring their ruach, their spirit of God, into that moment, the good news, the story would have been lost. Which means, as I argued with Phil Wallace, surely this story is in our Torah, because it reminds us that what a community brings is absolutely integral to a team's success. This past week, a church research group posted an article online. It's been getting a lot of buzz in the rabbinic community. It's called, "They're Never Coming Back." It's been giving me pause, too, ever since. You don't have to read the article to know what it's about. That it does not matter what churches do anymore because the pandemic has only accelerated trends that were well underway beforehand. Churchgoers ain't going to church no more, and they're not going to when the pandemic is over. The article recalled countless stories of congregants who said to their pastors, "Pastor, I know we're all wearing masks, but I just don't feel safe going to church." Only for that pastor to go online the next day and to see those same people eating unmasked in a crowded restaurant or having an indoor water park vacation. For many, the article argues the Facebook community has become community, or soccer practice has become community. And if that is true, friends, if we've gotten to the point where Mark Zuckerberg's stupid algorithm, yeah, you heard me say it, makes us feel more at home than a house of God, I can say with no small degree of sadness that the article is right. And this will be the end of religious life in our country as we know it. So what is it? What is it that will revive not school spirits? What can revive shul spirits after the pandemic? What is it that's going to bring us all back into the game? Friends, as I study the story of Abraham and Sarai, I am reminded that for our story to matter, for it to be our Torah-worthy story, there can be no Eitz Chaim United without our fans. There was a lot that was discouraging professionally about the pandemic, but I can tell you that nothing is worse than giving a sermon into a camera in an empty room. You can feel the difference today. We made some accommodations because of the pandemic, and we are going to continue to make those accommodations for those who cannot physically get here for various health reasons. But an empty sanctuary with a camera cannot and must not be our future of Shabbat or any other service during the week. What is it that is going to make us a winning team? First, I want you to know that we at Eitz Chaim will bring our A-game. That is why I want you to join us next week for Shabbat Lekulam, a Shabbat for everyone. And that is our goal. In addition to our regularly scheduled service, the one that we all enjoy, we're going to have coffee with the rabbis before shul, an outside speaker relevant to the parasha, youth programming, and optional alternative spiritual kinds of experiences, alongside, friends, a really, really good kiddush. We are pulling out all the stops next week. Our tent is wide open, just as Abraham's was generations ago. But y'all know where this is going. At the same time, if we're going to make this work, we need our fans to support us. And so I hope you will consider joining us next Shabbat. If you can't do it next Shabbat, we'll have it again 2 weeks later. Because, to put it bluntly, the Eitz Chaim Falcons cannot rise up without an enthusiastic fan base. Nor can we be Eitz Chaim United without each and every one of your faces. So please consider joining us for the game. Be into the game, love the game. We can write a story worthy of being included in the Torah if we are both present playing the game together. That's a story worth writing. Shabbat shalom.